Good morning to all. From today onwards, we are proceeding on the way to the discussion of development of urogenital system. Okay? Development of urogenital system. Now you can understand the urogenital system consists of two different systems, urinary system and genital system. And the functional aspect of both these systems completely differs. Both these systems completely differs in the functional fundamental, because the urinary system is engaged with the elimination of these nitrogenous waste products as well as the maintenance of fluid and electrolyte balance, while the genital system is engaged with the maintenance as well as the propagation of the species. So functional aspect of both these systems differs completely. But frequently we use this urogenital system. So what's the logic? Why we are using this urogenital system, this terminology? So one of the logic for this using this terminology, urogenital system or the genitourinary system, is the embryological base. One of the base is the embryological base, developmental base, because both these system, urinary system as well as the genital system, major part of the development that overlaps. Major development of both these systems overlaps. That's why from the embryological point of view, we study the development of both these systems combinedly. So from today onwards, we are going to discuss this development of this urogenital system. But first we will discuss the development of this urinary system. Now, as I told, this one source is common that is shared by both these systems, urinary system as well as the genital system for the development. Now that source is this intermediate mesoderm. Intermediate mesoderm is the source that is shared by both these systems. Now you know about this intermediate mesoderm. That is one of the divisions of this intraembryonic mesoderm. Now this is the coronal section of the developing embryo. Now this one is the intraembryonic portion, intraembryonic mesoderm. So here intraembryonic mesoderm, that is divided into three parts, having got three different parts. This is the paraxial mesoderm, just over the side of this developing neural tube. Over the lateral aspect of this paraxial mesoderm, there is an intermediate mesoderm, and lateral to that is the lateral plate mesoderm. Okay. So three subdivisions are there for this intraembryonic mesoderm. Out of these three subdivisions, the middle subdivision, that is the intermediate mesoderm, and this intermediate mesoderm, as I explained, that is shared by both this genital as well as the urinary system. Okay. Now next, this is one more slide, just a schematic presentation of the section that passes through this body cavity, and here over this dorsal wall of the body, this part is the intermediate mesoderm, and here you can notice that this intermediate mesoderm that lies over the dorsal body wall, that projects, that elongates, that projection is there, that is craniocaudally elongated, and that projection, that is known as the urogenital ridge. So this mesenchymal condensation in the intermediate mesoderm that produce a elongated ridge over the dorsal body wall that extends craniocaudally, and that ridge is the urogenital ridge. Here it is labeled urogenital ridge. Now within this urogenital ridge, nephrogenic cord is there. Now here one more image to explain further, that this whole part is the mesoderm that was present in the urogenital ridge, and that is a part of the intermediate mesoderm. So here one can get that this in the upper part, this mesoderm is segmented. In the upper part, that is a orange colored segments one can notice, that is segmented mesoderm, and they are known as the nephrotomes. Here they are known as the nephrotomes. So these segmented nephrotomes that is located in the cervical as well as the upper thoracic region and in the lower part, which is unsegmented elongated mesodermal condensation, that is known as the nephrogenic cord. So basically in the cranial part, which is located in the cervical as well as the upper thoracic region, the segmented mesoderm are there, that is known as the nephrotomes, while more caudally, that is in the lower thoracic as well as the lumbosacral region, unsegmented nephrogenic cord is there. So all these are the sources for this nephrogenic cord as well as the nephrotomes. They are the sources for the development of kidney as well as the ureter. In case of this urogenital system, no doubt that also give rise to this genital system also. But in the urinary system, that is the source for the development of kidney as well as the ureter. One more figure, same figure. These upper segmented nephrotomes are there, and this lower unsegmented nephrogenic cord is there. Now, in the development of kidney, in the human embryo, 3 successive sets of the kidney appears at the different layer times. 3 successive sets that appears at the different time period of this embryonic development. The first set, that is known as the pronephry, that appears early in the 4th week of the development, and that is located within the cervical as well as the upper thoracic segments. Actually, in fact, that derives from the nephrotomes, what we have discussed in the cervical and the upper thoracic segments. Now, these pronephry, they are rudimentary. In a human embryo, these pronephry are rudimentary and non-functional. The structure of the pronephry is very simple. Here, in the upper part, the pronephry is there. So the structure consists of certain tubules. They are known as the pronephric tubules. They are transversely placed, and these tubules, they drain into a single duct, that is known as the pronephric duct. So recalling that pronephry, what is the structure? Where it is the first, what is the location? It's a cervical as well as the upper thoracic segment. What is the structure? So transversely placed few pronephric tubules are there, and these tubules, they drain into a single duct, that is known as the pronephric duct. And further down this pronephric duct, you can get in this figure that these pronephric duct open in the lower part in a structure that is known as the cloaca. I think you know well about this cloaca, that is endodermal cloaca. So that is a part of the hindgut, post-allantoic part of the hindgut, and this cloaca divides into a 2-part basically, a primitive urogenital sinus and a primitive rectum, that you have studied in the development of this alimentary canal. And this primitive urogenital sinus receives the opening of this pronephric duct. So recalling, the pronephros located within the cervical as well as the upper thoracic segments, having a simple structure in the form of pronephric tubules, and this single pronephric duct is there, and this pronephric duct opens in the lower part in the primitive urogenital sinus. Now, as I told, the pronephry are rudimentary in case of the human embryo. It's rudimentary and non-functional. So one can use a sentence that's a futile attempt of the nature for this excretion of the waste product. It's a futile attempt because it's a non-functional. Now, these pronephry, because it's non-functional, obviously that degenerates. These pronephric tubules and the cephalic part of this pronephric duct degenerates. But while degenerating, it gives a gift to the next set of the kidney. And what is that gift? That is the major caudal part of the duct. So this pronephric duct, only a small cephalic part that degenerates, otherwise majority of the duct, that is used by the second set of the kidney, and that is here. It's a mesonephric kidney. It's a second set of the kidney, mesonephric kidney. Now this, in contrast to this pronephric kidney, which is completely non-functional, mesonephric kidney is comparatively well developed and that function for few times, for roughly for few weeks. So for 4 weeks, sorry, so up to 4 weeks, this mesonephric kidney function for the excretion of this waste product. And what is the basic structure of this mesonephric kidney? Once again, the mesonephric tubules are there. Number of tubules, mesonephric tubules one can notice in this figure. And these mesonephric tubule, they drain their excretion by this pronephric duct. That pronephric duct, that was a gift from this pronephric kidney before the pronephric kidney degenerates, and this gift is taken by this mesonephric kidney. Now this duct is known as the mesonephric duct. So this is the structure of this mesonephric kidney. The mesonephric tubules are there, and this mesonephric duct which drains these excretory products. And ultimately, what's the opening that I explained in the pronephric duct? That in the primitive urogenital sinus, in the lower part. Now, as I told, this mesonephric kidney, they are comparatively well developed and function as an interim kidney, as a temporary kidney for 4 weeks. But later on, what happens? This mesonephric kidney also fails to fulfill the function, excretory function, complicated excretory function of the human embryo. That also fails. So, not most of the, but cranial part of the mesonephric kidney, here one can notice that the cranial part of the mesonephric kidney also disappears. Cranial tubules as well as the cranial part of the mesonephric duct, that disappears, but these caudal tubules and caudal part of this mesonephric duct still appears, and but this caudal tubules and the caudal part of the mesonephric duct change their system. Now it's not a part of urinary system, that becomes a part of the genital system. It will give rise to certain organs, certain parts of the genital tract that we will discuss in the genital system. But remember that the caudal mesonephric tubule as well as the caudal mesonephric duct retains, not disappear, only the cranial part that disappears. So here this caudal part of the mesonephric tubules and the caudal part of the mesonephric duct. So as I told, a mesonephric kidney, that is an interim kidney, no doubt comparatively well developed and also a function as a temporary kidney for 4 weeks, but, and that is developed in the thoracic, in the lumbar region, but that is going to fail, that fails to fulfill the complex functions or the complex requirement, functional requirements of this human embryo. That's why that degenerates, and later on the third set appears, which is a permanent kidney, and that is the metanephric kidney. So now we will focus our discussion over the metanephric or the permanent kidney till we have discussed the temporary kidneys. That is a pronephric kidney and mesonephric kidney. Now metanephric kidney, development of the metanephric kidney. Now here in this slide one, you can notice that this metanephric kidney having a dual source, a two source for the origin, two different source for the origin. One source is the mesonephric duct that is going to give rise to this collecting part of the ureteric collecting part, and second source is the nephrogenic cord, what we have discussed in the introduction, caudal unsegmented part of the intermediate mesoderm, that is a nephrogenic cord. So that nephrogenic cord that is give rise to this excretory part. So two different sources are there, two different sources contribute in the formation of this metanephric kidney. One is the mesonephric duct that is going to give rise to the ureteric cord, what I have written in this slide, and second one is the nephrogenic cord that is going, that forms the metanephric blastema, what I have written in this slide. So how these two sources contribute, that I am going to explain you one by one. So let's discuss first the contribution from this collecting part, and a contribution from this mesonephric duct that is going to give rise to the ureteric bud. Now, let me explain you the basic fundamental aspect by one figure. Here, this green colored line, this green colored line, that is the mesonephric duct, what we have discussed in this mesonephros. That mesonephric duct that opens into the urogenital sinus, that I explained. Now, just before this mesonephric duct opens into the sinus, that give rise to one diverticulum, that here one can see in this figure. This diverticulum is known as the metanephric diverticulum or the ureteric bud. And this diverticulum is the precursor, is the primordia of the ureter as well as the collecting part of this kidney. So basically what we are discussing about the collecting part of the kidney, we will discuss the excretory part later on. So this collecting part of the kidney, the basic source is this metanephric diverticulum. This is the diverticulum, or also known as the ureteric bud. So this ureteric bud, as the name indicates, that is going to give rise to the ureter, but not only ureter, with that that give rise to this collecting part of the kidney. And second source is this, here one can notice this nephrogenic cord, and within the nephrogenic cord, here a collection of the cells, mesodermal cells, that is going to give rise to this metanephric blastema, and this metanephric blastema is the precursor or the primordium of the excretory part of the kidney that we will discuss later on. So let's start with the discussion of this collecting part. So as I told, this collecting part of the kidney develops from this ureteric bud, metanephric diverticulum, and how this metanephric diverticulum arises, that can be seen in this figure. That is from the lower part of the mesonephric duct. Now this one is the mesonephric duct, and from its lower part the diverticulum arises. This is one more figure, a sagittal section. So first you need to understand which are the structures. Here this blue colored duct is the mesonephric duct. That is the parent duct for this development of, or the giving, that is giving rise to this ureteric bud. So here in the lower part one can see this yellow colored diverticulum that takes place from the lower part of this mesonephric duct, that is a metanephric diverticulum or the ureteric bud. Now this ureteric bud, one can notice that initially that goes dorsally, and later on that passes headwards. Now the part of the mesonephric duct between the emergence of this ureteric bud and the entry within this urogenital sinus, this small part, that is known as the common excretory duct. So common excretory duct is a small part of this ureteric bud, a small part of this mesonephric duct between the origin of this ureteric bud and urogenital sinus. Now, this metanephric diverticulum or ureteric bud that travels in this figure, you can see that is going to travel towards this nephrogenic cord. This one is the nephrogenic cord that is going to give rise, that is the precursor of this excretory part. So that travels towards the nephrogenic cord, and here now see in the lower figure D, this one is the ureteric bud, schematic presentation of the ureteric bud. So here one can notice that the distal blind end of the ureteric bud gets dilated. That is dilated. Now this distal blind end of the ureteric bud that comes in the contact with the mesodermal tissue or the mesodermal cells of the nephrogenic cord. Here this one is the nephrogenic, a small part of the nephrogenic cord is shown orange color. Now these cells of the nephrogenic cord that is going to cap the dilated part, that is going to cap the blind end of this ureteric bud. So here the blind end of the ureteric bud is capped by this cells, cluster of the cells that is capping the blind end of this ureteric bud. Now this cellular cluster, it's a bilaminar cell, and that is known as the metanephric blastema. So basically metanephric blastema is the mesodermal cells present in the nephrogenic cord, and that is going to cap the blind end, that is going to cap the blind end of this ureteric bud. Now in the next figure one can see this ureteric bud divides into cranial and caudal part. Two subdivisions can be seen, the cranial part and caudal part. Now these cranial and caudal part, they are the precursor or the primordia of the cheilitis, major cheilitis. Later on they are going to give rise to this major cheilitis. Now in the next figure, figure number F, figure labeled by the F, one can notice the further successive divisions of this ureteric bud. In the figure E, it's only two divisions are shown, and they are the precursor of this major cheilitis. In the figure F, successive divisions are shown. Now this successive divisions almost up to the 13 or 14 generations the divisions takes place. Okay. Now this primary first division, first order division in upper and lower, they are the primordia of this major cheilitis. Now second, third and fourth generations of the successive divisions, they get fused to form the minor cheilitis. So this is how the minor cheilitis developed, by the fusion of certain generations of the divisions. And further divisions, fifth generation onward, they are going to give rise to the collecting tubules. So here they are the in this figure they are the major cheilitis, then these are the minor cheilitis, and further divisions one can notice they are the collecting tubules. So this is how the ureteric bud give rise to the collecting part of the kidney. You know, the collecting part of the kidney consists of this collecting tubules, collecting duct, and the pelvis of the ureter, part of the ureter which is located within this kidney. So let's have a short recap about this ureteric bud or the collecting part of the kidney. Now this, as I told, the collecting part of the kidney, that is derived from the ureteric bud, and this ureteric bud, see in the figure, the ureteric bud is a diverticulum from the lower part of the mesonephric duct, that can be seen in this figure. I have explained. And from the lower part of the mesonephric duct, the ureteric bud arises. This ureteric bud travels towards the lower part of the nephrogenic cord. Here this is a nephrogenic cord, that is part and parcel of intermediate mesoderm, lower part of the intermediate mesoderm. And as the ureteric bud reaches the nephrogenic cord, this certain cells, mesodermal cells located within the nephrogenic cord, that is going to cap the distal blind end of the ureteric bud. And these capping the cells, they are known as the metanephric blastema. That is going to give rise to the excretory part that we will discuss later on. Now this ureteric bud divides and subdivides for certain generations. The initial first generation, that is going to give rise to this major cheilitis. The next few generations that get fused to form this minor cheilitis, and the further generations that is going to give rise to the collecting tubules. So this is how the collecting part of the kidney is formed. Now the proximal part of the ureteric bud, that is going to give rise to the ureter, obviously. So upper part of this ureter is upper dilated part of this ureteric bud, that gives rise to the, that is known as the pelvis, and the lower part is the further part of the ureter. Now I have told that this ureteric bud that emerges from the lower part of the mesonephric duct, then how it is going to open in the ureter, in the urinary bladder. So here the common excretory duct, what is seen in this figure, This is the dorsal view of the developing urinary bladder. Let me tell you first, introduce the various ducts. This is the metanephric, mesonephric duct that has opened into the developing urogenital sinus. This is the ureteric bud. Now, this one is the common excretory duct. Now here, in the next figure, one can notice that this common excretory duct as well as this caudal part of the mesonephric duct, all they get fused or they get emerged in the dorsal wall of this urinary bladder. That is going to give rise to the trigone that we will discuss in the urinary bladder. So, this ureteric bud, which was first the diverticulum from this mesonephric duct, and that has an opening in the mesonephric duct only, now having a separate opening in the urinary bladder. So, because of the absorption of this cranial part of this mesonephric duct, the ureteric bud now assumes a separate opening in the urinary bladder. So, ureter having a separate opening in the urinary bladder, and the original mesonephric duct opening that is transported towards the lower aspect, that is going to open in the prostatic part of the urethra, that we will discuss in the next lecture. Now, so this is about the collecting part of the kidney. Now, second part is the excretory part of the kidney. Let me recall you that metanephric kidney having a two sources for the origin. This slide I have shown. One part is the collecting part, that is from the ureteric bud, that is basically from this mesonephric duct that we have discussed. Now, second part, excretory part, that is from the metanephric blastema, that is the parent source is the mesodermal cells present in the nephrogenic cord. And that also I explained what is the metanephric blastema, that this ureteric bud, as it enters within this nephrogenic cord, that is kept by the bilaminar cells of the mesoderm present in the nephrogenic cord, and these cells they are known as the metanephric blastema, that I explained. Now what happens? As the ureter, a distal end of this ureteric bud divides and subdivides, divides and subdivides for the certain generations, the capping cells also divides and subdivides, because they have to cap each end. See here a single bud is there, that is kept by this metanephric blastema. Here also you can see each distal blind end have to be kept. So, this metanephric blastema cells also divides and divides. Now, while doing so, what happens? See this figure, showing the same. This is a single ureteric bud, unbranched, and here is the metanephric blastema. Now, here it is a branch. Only a single metanephric blastema is shown. Actually, it is present here also. More and more branch. Here one can notice that all the distal blind end are kept by this metanephric blastema. But here, in this second image, you can notice one more structure. And that is present here also. Now, what about this structure? So, it is the structure that is going to give rise to this excretory part of kidney. Now, how this structure derives and what is that? So, while division of this metanephric blastema, certain cells or the certain cluster of the cells, not only a single cells, cluster of the cells gets detached from this main cell mass of this metanephric blastema, and this detached cell cluster that lies on the side of these collecting tubules, various divisions of the collecting tubules. So, they are the detached cellular cluster from the main metanephric blastemic mass. Now, what is the name of this? This cellular cluster that lies over the sides of the collecting tubule. So, the name of this cellular cluster is the renal vesicle. These are the renal vesicles, and a single renal vesicle is the primordium of a nephron. This renal vesicle is going to give rise to a nephron. Here you can see this is a single renal vesicle. Actually, all this is the single renal vesicle up to these only. and this one is the collecting duct. Now see the transformation of the structure from this type of the structure into this type of this morphological shape. So what happens? This single renal vesicle is a cluster of the cells. Initially that gets elongated. Now the one end of this renal vesicle that is attached to this collecting duct, and the other end of this renal vesicle, this is the other end, this is the one end, this is the second end. Now for one end is that is going to attach to this collecting duct, and the other end that is invaginated by this capillaries mass, that is the Bowman's capsule and this glomerulus. So these are the glomeruli that is going to invaginate the other end. So this invaginated end, this one is the Bowman's capsule and this one is the capillary mass. So altogether it's a glomerulus. And the intermediate portion of this renal vesicle that is going to give rise to these tubules, proximal tubules, lupopennate, distal convoluted tubules. All these are derived from this renal vesicle up to this level. And here this one is the collecting duct, and that is part and parcel of the collecting system, and that is derived from this metanephric ureteric bud that we have discussed. So this is how the excretory portion of the kidney also derives. So this was about this development of the excretory portion of the kidney. So both the part of the metanephric kidney we have discussed. First the collecting part, and second one is the excretory part. Collecting part basically that is the derivative of the ureteric bud, and that is the diverticulum from the mesonephric duct. And the metanephric part is the derivative of this metanephric blastema, and these metanephric blastema mesenchymal cells, they are located within the nephrogenic cord. So this is about the development of the kidney, how both the different parts are derived from the different sources, but the basic, so if you think the basic source is the intermediate mesoderm. In case of this excretory part is a metanephric blastema, but that metanephric blastema is part and parcel of this nephrogenic cord, that is the part of this intermediate mesoderm. And the second part, that is the excretory collecting part, that is going to give rise to the ureter as well as the collecting part of this kidney. That also is the diverticulum from the mesonephric duct, and if you think a trace proximally, that mesonephric duct itself derives from the intermediate mesoderm. So basically whole kidney is the derivatives of the intermediate mesoderm. Now next point is the ascent of the kidney. Now as I told, a metanephric kidney that derives from the lower part of the nephrogenic cord in the lumbosacral region, actually in the pelvisacral region. So this kidney develops initially in the pelvic cavity. Okay, that develops in the pelvic cavity, and here in the pelvic cavity it receives the blood supply from the median sacral artery. That is a branch from this abdominal aorta. So median sacral artery nourishes the kidneys in the earlier stages, because the kidney is located within the pelvic cavity. Now later on the gradual ascent takes place. So from the pelvic cavity kidney comes out, and gradually it ascends upward. First is come to lie in the iliac fossa, then further gradually ascend, and later on that resumes or assumes the adult position in the upper part of the posterior abdominal wall. Now while doing so, the blood supply, while these changes takes place, changes in the position takes place, the blood supply to the kidney also changes. The parent source of the arterial supply also changes. As I told, that the pelvic kidney, when the kidney are located in the pelvis, in the initial part of the embryo, At that time, it receives the nourishment from this median sacral artery. When it comes to lie in the iliac fossa, that receives the nourishment from the iliac arteries, internal iliac or common iliac, whatever. And later on, it ascends upon and that receives the nourishment from this renal artery. So while ascent, the parent arteries supplying the kidneys also changes. Now rotation. Now initially, when the kidney gets developed, the hilum of the kidney is directed forward or directed ventrally. Later on, the kidney undergoes the medial rotation, and because of that, the hilum comes to directed over the medial side. So this was a brief account about this development of the kidneys. Now proceeding further about the developmental anomalies associated with the kidney. Number of different developmental anomalies are associated with the kidney. They are headed like this. First, according to the number, developmental anomalies in reference to the number. First is the agenesis of the single kidney. Now, as I told, the ureteric bud arises from the mesonephric duct and comes in contact with the nephrogenic cord, and here it induces the development. Now, sometimes a ureteric bud fails to arise from one side, fails to arise on either side. So here in this case, the kidney of that side fails to develop. So that is a agenesis of the kidney. Sometimes more than one ureteric bud arises from the mesonephric duct, a single mesonephric duct, or a single ureteric bud gets split. So in these cases, more than one kidney develops on one side. It's a multiple kidney. So this is about according to number developmental anomalies. Agenesis of the kidney may be there, a multiple kidney may be there. Now second anomalies is the according to position. As I explained in the later part, that initially kidney develops in the pelvic cavity. Later on it gradually ascends. Now sometimes it fails to ascend properly. So the position of the kidney is changed. Adult position of the kidney is changed. I have written it's a pelvic kidney. Sometimes kidney completely fails to ascend and remains in the pelvic position. So the kidney is located in the pelvic cavity. Second one is the fused kidney. Now what is fused kidneys here? Kidney of the right side in this figure, one can notice right kidney is there or not? It is there. But that right kidney has fused with the left. Both the kidney get fused. But the position of the ureter is not changed. The opening of the ureter within the urinary bladder is same. But here in this case, the right kidney has changed its position, goes towards the left kidney, and they get merged. It's a fused kidney. So we can tell it's an ectopic kidney, ectopic right kidney. Next anomaly is according to shape. The shape of the kidney, which is a normally bean shape, that differs. Here in this figure, the very common anomaly in the shape is the horseshoe kidney. So here in this image, one can notice that the lower pole of both the kidneys are fused. Lower pole of both the kidneys are fused, having the appearance of the horseshoe. So this type of kidney is known as the horseshoe kidney. And mostly horseshoe kidney also are ectopic in position. They come to lie at somewhat lower level than the normal level. Why? Because the ascent of the kidney gets arrested by the origin of the inferior mesenteric artery from the abdominal aorta. So this abdominal aorta gives rise to the inferior mesenteric artery from the ventral aspect. That inferior mesenteric artery becomes the obstacle for the ascent of this fused part. So mostly these horseshoe kidney are ectopic in nature and comes to lie at somewhat lower level than the normal level. One more anomaly in the shape is the discoid kidney, disc kidney. Here one can notice that both the kidney get fused in the midline. Both the kidney have fused in the midline. Actually, there are two kidneys. One can notice the ureter and one can notice the blood supply. See the blood supply as well as the ureter. Blood supply for each kidney is separate, and ureter that may exit from this hilum, that also separate. But the substance of the kidney get fused. So it's a discoid kidney. So let's have a recall about these anomalies. First, anomaly in the number. It may be agenesis over one side, it may be a multiple kidney over one side, or both the sides. So according to position, it's an ectopic kidney, it may be a pelvic in position, it may be fused on the one side, or maybe other position. It may be partially fails to ascend. That may come to lie in the iliac fossa also. So according to position. Next, according to shape, it's a horseshoe shaped kidney, or it may be a discoid kidney. Both the kidney get fused. So it's a discoid kidney. The very common anomalies for the renal development is the polycystic kidney. So here, this one is the normal kidney, and here one can notice the surface of this kidney, number of cystic enlargements are there, and these cysts that retains the urine, that contains the urine. That is a polycystic kidney. It's a genetic disorder, and it is due to failure of the fusion of excretory part and the collecting part. So this was all about the development of the kidney along with the anomalies. Basically, there are two sources for the metanephric kidney that we have discussed. Before that, what I have told you about the three different successive sets of the kidney: pronephros, mesonephros, metanephros. And before that, I have told about the basic source, intermediate mesoderm, as a basic source for the development of the urogenital system. Now, next point in the urogenital system is the development of the urinary bladder. We have discussed about this development of the kidney as well as the ureter, the development of the urinary bladder. But before we proceed for the development of the urinary bladder discussion, we need to discuss about this division of the endodermal cloaca. Actually, what I am going to tell you, that is a division of the endodermal cloaca that has been discussed in the development of the hindgut. You know, the hindgut, distal enlarged part of the hindgut is known as the endodermal cloaca, and this endodermal cloaca that is divided by this urorectal septum into the primitive rectum as well as the primitive urogenital sinus. So this urorectal septum divides the endodermal cloaca into primitive rectum and primitive urogenital sinus. You are told about this division in the development of the hindgut. So I am not going to go into detail of how this urorectal septum is formed, which are the sources for this septum. But let me tell you fact that this endodermal cloaca divides into two parts. Basically, it's a primitive rectum that lies dorsally. Here in this last figure, one can notice, and primitive urogenital sinus. Now we have to focus over the primitive urogenital sinus. You have discussed about this primitive rectum and anal canal in the development of the alimentary canal. Now it's time to focus over the primitive urogenital sinus. So keep in mind that primitive urogenital sinus is the part and parcel of the endodermal cloaca, and that is going to give rise to this part of the urinary system. Now, this one is the primitive urogenital sinus, this blue color structure. Now, this primitive urogenital sinus having a certain subdivisions, and here they are here are the subdivisions. But before that, let me tell you a fact that here this endodermal cloaca and this one is the allantoic diverticulum. You know this endodermal cloaca having a connections that gives a diverticulum that is known as the allantoic diverticulum, and that travels towards this umbilical cord. So this is allantoic diverticulum. Now what is the scenario after the division of the endodermal cloaca? See in the last figure. This one is the allantoic diverticulum, and this the endodermal cloaca now it's divided. So here one can notice that this allantoic diverticulum is continuous with the primitive urogenital sinus. Now this primitive rectum and anal canal having no relation with the allantoic diverticulum. The diverticulum is now continuous with the ventral division of the endodermal cloaca, that is a primitive urogenital sinus. So what I mean to explain this slide, repeat this slide, that this allantoic diverticulum is communicated with this primitive urogenital sinus. Now see, this is the division of the primitive urogenital sinus, and here you can see that allantoic diverticulum. So this primitive urogenital sinus basically divides into two parts. Here they are labeled. It's a vesico-urethral canal, the cranial part, and the caudal part, it's a definitive urogenital sinus. Cranial one is a vesico-urethral canal and the definitive urogenital sinus. Now here in this figure you can notice that the allantoic diverticulum having a communication with the vesico-urethral canal, and that is the primordia for the urinary bladder that we are going to discuss within few minutes. So this is the division of the endodermal cloaca, vesico-urethral canal, and the definitive urogenital sinus. Now this definitive urogenital sinus having the subdivisions that can be seen in this figure. Here the proximal or the cranial part is the pelvic part, and the caudal part is the phallic part. Now let's go for the small topic of the urinary development of the urinary bladder. Now it will be clear for once you have got that how primitive urogenital sinus derives from the endodermal cloaca and which are the subdivisions of the primitive urogenital sinus and the connection of the sinus with the allantoic canal. Now it will be very easy for you people to understand the development of the urinary bladder. Now this is the development of the urinary bladder, what I have explored, what I have written, described. The mucosa of the urinary bladder derives from the endoderm of the vesico-urethral canal, which is the cranial division of this primitive urogenital sinus. Re-showing that slide, this is the primitive urogenital sinus and this one is the vesico-urethral canal. So endoderm of this vesico-urethral canal that is going to give rise to this epithelium of the urinary bladder, mucosa of the urinary bladder. Apex of this urinary bladder, this part that derives from the absorption of small part of this allantoic cavity or the allantoic diverticulum. Now this allantoic diverticulum normally later on that gets fibrosed. This diverticulum that get fibrosed, so there is no cavity in the diverticulum. It's a fibrous structure only, and this fibrous structure is known as the urachus, and later on it's known as the median umbilical ligament connecting the apex of the urinary bladder with the umbilicus. The apex of the urinary bladder derives from this part of this allantoids. And important point is the trigone. Trigone, you know that the trigone lies over the base of this urinary bladder, posterior aspect of the urinary bladder, a somewhat triangular shaped structure. Now this trigone derives from the absorbed mesonephric duct. Remember, this is important. Previously also I have shown this slide. This is the dorsal view of the developing urinary bladder along with this mesonephric duct and ureteric bud. So at that time I have told you that this cranial part, this part of the mesonephric duct that merges or that get fused with the wall of this urinary bladder. So that part gives rise to the trigone. So this trigone is the mesodermal in origin, remember. But later on, nowadays it's told that this whole epithelium of the urinary bladder is the derivative of this endoderm rather than this trigone that derives from the mesoderm. So this is about the development of the urinary bladder. Let's have a quick recap. Mucosa of the urinary bladder, except that of the trigone, the mucosa derives from the endoderm of this vesico-urethral part of the primitive urogenital sinus. Apex is derived from the proximal part of the allantoic diverticulum, and trigone is by the absorbed portion of this mesonephric ducts. And obviously the surrounding thick muscular wall as well as the surrounding connective tissue framework, that is the derivatives of mesoderm only. Now, developmental anomalies of the urinary bladder. First is the congenital rectovesical fistula. Now you know about the development of the urinary bladder, so it will be very easy for you people how these developmental anomalies takes place. Now see the congenital rectovesical fistula. Now see this is the see for the second figure. This is the primitive rectum, and this is a urinary. This is a rectum, and this one is the urinary bladder, and the fistula is there. So fistula or the communication between the rectum as well as the urinary bladder, it's a very uncommon. But how it takes place, now you can easily apply your logic, and you can apply your logic and easily understand how it takes place. Now this takes place because of the faulty development of the urorectal septum. As I told, that the endodermal cloaca is partitioned into two parts, primitive urogenital sinus and the primitive rectum. Primitive rectum gives rise to this rectum as well as the anal canal, and urogenital sinus gives rise to the urinary bladder. But if this separation is faulty, then the rectum is communicated with the urinary bladder. That can be easily understood. It's a congenital rectovesical fistula. Same thing in the female, a congenital vesico-vaginal fistula. Here the urinary bladder is communicated with the vagina. You can see in the figure. Now, at this moment, it would be somewhat tough for you people to understand the logic behind this. The logic for this, I will explain you with the development of this female reproductive system. Here, but you just remember here the role of the paramesonephric duct is there. Urachal anomalies. The allantois, as I explained, the allantois, initially that gets communicated, that is going to communicate the urinary bladder with the umbilicus. Later on that get fibrosed to form the urachus or the median umbilical ligament completely. But part of the allantois or sometimes whole allantois is canalized. It fails to fibrose. So at that time the different anomalies takes place. That is known as the urachal anomalies. Now see this second figure. Here this one is the urinary bladder. Here is the umbilicus, and this one, this thick line is the indicative of the completely patterned urachus. So here one can understand by the logic that the urine comes out through the umbilicus, because the urinary bladder is communicated with the exterior through this umbilicus. This urachus is patterned completely. So it's a patent urachus. Second one is the urachal cyst. So here in this figure one can notice that at the proximal and at the distal part, the allantois is fused, fibrosed to form the urachus, but the middle part of this allantois is not fibrosed. Still it contains the duct, and this duct is later on collects the fluid. So here that is known as the urachal cyst. It's a urachal cyst. This one is the normal urachus. So see the normal. So you can easily correlate this patent urachus as well as the urachal cyst as well as this urachal sinus. Here what happens? The part of the urachus towards the umbilicus is fails to canalize, that fails to fibrose, but the proximal part that is towards the urinary bladder, that fibrose. So here it's a sinus is there, the external opening, that's why it's known as the sinus, opening at the umbilicus. So it's a urachal sinus, and just reverse of that, the part of the urachus that is towards the urinary bladder fails to fibrose. So urachal diverticulum is there from this urinary bladder, apex of the urinary bladder diverticulum. But that is not going to communicate with the umbilicus because the distal part of the urachus that is towards the umbilicus that has fibrosed. So these are certain urachal anomalies. And lastly, very serious but rare, fortunately rare, anomaly associated with the bladder, that is the bladder extrophy or the ectopia vasica. So here what happens? Below the umbilicus, see first this figure. Here is the level of the umbilicus, and this is the pubic symphysis. So the portion of the anti-abdominal wall below the level of umbilicus that completely fails to form. So obviously the urinary bladder is exposed, and not only this urinary bladder but frequently the anterior wall of the urinary bladder, front aspect of the bladder also is not there. So interior of the bladder is exposed. So that is known as the ectopia vasica or the extrophy of the urinary bladder. So today we have started the development of the urogenital system. I explained the logic why it's a urogenital system. The terminology urogenital system is used, and we have diverted our discussion towards the urinary system, and within the urinary system we have discussed about this kidney, development of the kidney, ureter, along with the development of the urinary bladder. In next lecture we will proceed further for this urethra and the genital system. Thank you.